If you hold your finger up in front of your face and then look through just one eye and then just the other, you'll instantly see how 3D works. I'll give you an idea of what I can see through each of my eyes. See how my finger obscures a different part of the Hollywood sign depending on which eye I'm looking through? That's because your two eyes view the world from slightly different angles, and so objects appear to be in slightly different positions. In fact, the closer something is to you, the more its position shifts from one eye to the other. It's then up to your brain to combine these two images into one super view of the world in which you not only know where everything is around you, but you also know how close everything is to you. The result in the cinema is a double image. The audience wears special glasses to block one image from each eye to create the illusion of a three-dimensional scene with depth. Burbank-based 3reality Digital has developed dual-lensed cameras to capture the two viewpoints needed for 3D video. Accompanying software keeps the images perfectly aligned and warns the director if the shot is likely to be uncomfortable for the audience's eyes. Time to see what all the fuss was about. 3reality specialises in filming commercials, concerts and live sporting events in 3D. Its showreel, which you can see here in only 2D, contains some of its more memorable moments. Yeah, okay. A lot of that was pretty convincing, a pretty good 3D video montage, and I really did feel like I was in some of those scenes, especially the wide shots, the crowd scenes of the sporting event and the music concert. And you can really feel the depth in those shots. There are a couple of nice touches as well where someone in the audience threw some water in the air, and that really did feel like the water was a long way in front of the guys on stage. Some of the stuff that didn't work for me were the scenes where something was coming right out of the screen and it was supposed to be right there in your face. For me, my eyes didn't feel like they could cross enough, and all I could see were two different images.
Everybody going to a 3D movie expects one or two of these shots, and it's a given.
3reality's Digital Systems CEO Steve Schler explained that 21st century 3D is less about poking you in the eye and more about being subtle and immersive.
But there's a language of 3D that hasn't been developed yet, and those are the shots that we're waiting for in terms of how do you use the depth to help tell your story. For instance, we use color to help tell a story, we use shape, we use line. We do a lot of things when we're making movies to make audiences feel certain ways.
But filmmakers need to wield this new tool carefully. 3D movies make your eyes work in an unnatural way, as Variety's David Cohen explained, whilst also poking his fingers in my face.
Is that your eye muscles are being asked to do something they're never asked to do in normal vision.
Too much extreme 3D, he says, can lead to eye strain and headaches, especially for older viewers whose eye muscles aren't as flexible as they once were.
As you edit, the fast cutting style that we've seen in action movies doesn't work as well because you have to give the audience time to physically readjust their eyes between shots. That style is much more difficult to pull off unless you turn the stereo effect way down. And I think that will affect how movies are made to some degree.
Is there a danger then that a movie made specifically for 3D will be boring in 2D?
That is absolutely a danger, and it is part of why filmmakers like Jim Cameron are being very conscious of having to make a movie that works in both formats.
How much of a gamble is 3D for Hollywood? I mean, is it a gimmick?
You know, the gimmick part of it is really up to the individual. You can be as in your face as you want to be, or, you know, in the way that I use it, I think of it more as a window into a reality. So we're not constantly poking you in the eye with one thing after another. And so, you know, you can look at a 2D version of a 3D movie and see all of the dumb 3D gags that were fun in 3D but look stupid in 2D because you're hanging on things too long, and why is that spear being held, you know, in my face?
It's a good point though, because as a director surely you want to really use 3D to the max. Do you feel hampered by the fact that it really does have to be backwards compatible to 2D, which is how most people are going to see it?
It was the big question we had to answer before we spent hundreds of millions of dollars making a movie. We had to say, is this movie going to be in any way compromised in its 2D presentation? Because the reality is, in the short term, the DVD is still going to be in 2D. 3D DVD will be coming eventually. So, you know, we had to be making a great 2D movie, which, oh, by the way, was also in 3D.
But the costs for 3D are also much higher. It costs more to make the movies. And to upgrade a screen to digital in order to show 3D movies, you need to install a digital projector at a cost of $70,000 a time. And since that so far only happens in just under 7,000 screens worldwide, there's still a long way to go. It costs more to make a 3D movie, it costs more to show it in the cinema, it costs more to go and see it. Do the numbers add up?
In the long run, it will probably depend on the emergence of 3D television, which is more on the drawing board now than it is a reality. So the revenue for 3D movies is limited entirely to theaters. That works if you're talking about the extra $15 million it took to make Monsters vs. Aliens, a 3D picture. But if you're talking about a live action picture where the 3D investment could be much greater, the numbers become much more difficult.
So, the future of 3D cinema depends on the emergence of 3D TV. But surely 3D TV will only catch on if there's enough content for it. And that must take us back to 3D cinema, mustn't it?